Combat Theory presents.
I have one more study on striking.
Oh, let's hear it.
Should we hit it? Okay.
Yeah.
So I might butcher this a little bit. I want to apologize. This study was published in 2020 by the University of Physical Education in, I believe it is Krakow, Poland. Okay. And the study was the effectiveness of kickboxing techniques and its relationship to fights won by knockout. Okay.
Nice.
So they looked at 188 fights, both amateur and professional, that ended in a knockout.
Love it.
This was all K1 rule set. Okay, so they were probably watching like maybe Glory, maybe K1 when it was still around, but the study was published in 2020, so it is a new study. The average fighter had 7 years of experience that was in the study. It's a short study. It's an easy read. It's available online. If you Google, the effectiveness of kickboxing techniques and its relationships to fight won by knockout, you probably find this study. It's a couple pages. So some interesting things that they had, some interesting results they had. One, more time training did not improve knockouts.
Yep.
Okay, so it wasn't like, amateurs didn't get knockouts and pros did. Okay. Now, similar to the UFC, the number one technique in K1 style that led to a knockout. Do you want to guess?
Punch.
Punch, but they had a very specific. They listed what the punch was.
Can I say right hook?
Okay, it was hook. They did not delineate the difference between left and right.
I like that.
So the study, it said it was hook.
I did my own study.
Okay.
This is a few years ago. I want to say 2017. I watched every finish in Glory to that point. And I wrote down the strikes that were involved in the finishing sequence.
All right, I'm interested.
And the number one strike that I saw come up was the right hook.
Okay.
Which is very odd to me because, and we could do an episode on this for my whole time up until that point and even beyond it, I heard from all these.
Don't throw the right hook.
Don't throw the rear hook. It's a useless strike. It'll get you caught this way.
Straight line beats the hook.
Yeah, or throw your lead hook because it's quicker to the target.
I was also taught this.
Yeah. This is a weird superstition. But then when I did the film study, I said, why is the right hook either knocking these guys out or leading to the next strike that knocks them out?
I think.
And now, just so everyone out there goes, if you're fighting one of my fighters, we're coming hooks both sides. We're not limiting just the lead hook.
Let's hope no one listens to this before your guys fight then. So of 188 fights, 36 ended with the hook.
Interesting.
They don't list if it's right or they did list it as a high hook, so a hook to the head, obviously.
To the head,
that was 19%.
Nice.
And I'm with you. I still to this day don't really teach the rear hook. I teach the rear overhand with the head coming off the line.
Yep.
But I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I'm just
I've gone the other way.
Product.
I've actually I teach the overhand less now because I find this habit, especially with men, that once you teach the overhand,
it's the only punch they throw.
Every technique goes out the window.
I'm with you on that one. I can name someone off air that I have that problem with.
Yeah.
Number two technique. Do you want to guess?
Number two
so
technique.
Hook
is number one.
Was number one.
I'm going
K1
to.
rule set.
I'm going to go either roundhouse to the head or knee to the head.
Roundhouse kick to the head.
Yeah.
26 finishes, 13.8%.
Love it.
Finish rate. Roundhouse kick to the head.
Number three, I'm going to guess, is knee to the head.
No, straight punch.
Straight punch.
Straight
okay.
punch,
all
yeah.
Right. I'm actually a big fan. I say the best combo in the game is 1-2. It might not be the flashiest, funnest one to knock someone out with, but it is super effective.
So what's interesting there is that between the K1 style and the UFC style, punches are still a significant finisher, right? And obviously, there's no rear naked choke in K1. But
are you telling me axe kicks, spinning wheel kicks, and
okay, the axe kick was the least likely kick to finish a fight. By the way, they put that in the study. I didn't write it down, but
I tell people all the time. My very first MMA fight, I threw an axe kick, and it's a cool picture. I could pull it up on Facebook. I have a mustache. And I landed, just as my instructors taught me, I landed right on the collarbone.
Ooh,
I'm going to break his collarbone.
Fuck.
He TKO'd me 2 rounds later. It landed square, heel to the collarbone. I'm like, he's not going to punch me anymore.
No, that's it.
Just like my masters taught me.
That's it.
After that, I started questioning the axe kick, and then that led me to questioning all kicks.
If
land an axe kick on their
I'm
collarbone,
gonna say
they
this.
can't punch you
I might
anymore.
delete it after the fact, but I'm gonna say it. Hindsight, if your coach asks you to call him master, that you may want to just go somewhere else immediately. Okay, here's interesting. The hook was the most used technique for both amateurs and professionals to end fights, right?
Yeah.
However, pros threw the hook on average twice as many times as amateurs.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it was the number one finisher of both, but my thought process is that once something works one time, you're like, oh, I'm going to keep using that. That's a finish. Now, if you're at home, that means that you should be thinking two things. One, I've got to work on my hooks.
They seem effective.
I've got to work on my hook defense.
Ooh. You mean there's two sides of the coin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, again, when you guys interpret data, you have to look at it at all angles as possible. The simplest one is the offensive-defensive angle, and then you go into strategy. Again, when you're analyzing data, it's not just good to know the numbers. It goes.
If I know
deeper than
that the hook and the round kick, the recommendations for this study were that you should develop combinations that employ your use of hooks and round kicks.
Yeah, especially in K1 rule set,
absolutely.
because
You
you're
know
not
what I
allowed
mean?
to elbow, you're not
Yes.
allowed to clinch.
And this is also something to be said about it. Like the roundhouse kick finished about the same as a kick in the UFC, right? But a lot of times people think like, well, you don't want to kick as much in the UFC because of takedowns and stuff like that. Well, the percentage finish is about the same.
Yeah.
So
it speaks of the effectiveness of the strike.
When it lands, it works, right?
Watch this entire episode for free on YouTube or wherever podcasts can be found.